record on this computer and go Facebook Live. Let's compare. Can you still hear me while I'm doing things?
Yep.
Okay, great.
This is working much better than last time.
I hope so, but it's not broadcasting yet. So cross our fingers.
Yes. No problem.
Cross our fingers. Let me see. Okay, I've already put everything here. So I will show in my group, share to my group, to my Abundant Entrepreneurs. And now we go live. Okay, just let's see how many. I just restarted my computer to make sure like everything is
there we go.
fresh.
Webinar is now streaming live on Facebook. Looks like we're going.
Not yet. From my side, it's still down. Redirecting to Facebook Live page. Hold on one moment. Cross our fingers.
Looks like we're live.
Keep praying. Yeah, we're live. Wonderful.
I'm just going to mute myself and play real quick.
Yeah, I'm then myself getting back to the. Hold on. I think you have to keep the speed up. It's better to stay in the room webinar.
Looks good.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't know if that was a speed thing or an issue we had with Be Live. Hey, there's Yoram Baltinesto.
Yeah, we're up now. I think the Zoom webinar is much better than Be Live.tv, yes. But it's a great trial. It's a great trial. It took me painful 2 days to Be Live.tv. We know what did not work well and what is working. So it's good we can recommend this live experience, right, to all our attendees.
Right. Especially for those of you that want to do interviews and stuff like that, which is one of the best ways to create lead magnets. And some of what we're going to talk about today, which we're talking about content today, which is the biggest thing. Yoram, quick, use it fast. Gotcha. Okay. And one thing I want to say when we're getting started today is I feel free to ask questions, to dig deeper, to ask something specific about your funnel or about what we covered last time. Yeah. Again, I'm comfortable going everywhere. We have a little something prepared for you today, but I always want to be able to answer questions that are real world questions for people and what's going on in their businesses and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Because this is the first really like it's a trial as well. You are our first expert to be highlighted in our Abundant Entrepreneurs. People may have not get used to it yet, but it's great. We will make this live video. It will be replay there, and the people whoever join in the future can still see like a series. But it's a big honor to interview you, and you are our first expert to be highlighted. Thank you so much for your generosity. So today's topic is thank you. And today's topic is how to use your existing content for your launch, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. So here's the big thing when it comes through the fact that everyone starts getting into the funnel build process and they start getting super overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because everybody thinks, all right, you think of the components of what has to go into a marketing funnel. And for those of you who aren't familiar, I'm just going to cover the basics for a second. So most of you know you've got to have some sort of freebie or multiple freebies that are in process to get people into what you're doing. So they've got to get a taste of you. They got to get an experience of what you're about. They have to know what you're an expert in or what area that you're in. And so you need freebies. And then from there, typically what you need next, and this can vary depending on what you're doing or what your business is, but you need some sort of introductory offer. You need something so that people get a feel for what it's like to start working with you or what it's like to train with you or how to get introduced to your product or service. And then from there, you've got what you might call your core offer, the thing that you really want them to do. So when you meet them and you're trying to get them into that core thing that you do or the core process or the core product that you've got them in, you've got that piece. And then you've got, kind of your big offer, the offer that you would put at the end. And, lots of different terms for that, depending on where you're getting your training. For me, since I'm in the school of Ryan Deiss and digital marketer, that's called the profit maximizer or bottom of funnel for a lot of you. Now, what a lot of people start to realize is when you start to put the process together and you start to have conversations at varying degrees, this is where everyone gets tripped up and overwhelmed, because what starts to happen is you go, oh, well, I have to be able to have the conversation that sits out in front of my free thing. I need to have the conversation that goes in between, my free thing and my first offer and my second offer, my second offer and my third offer. And then you start thinking about emails and social media and all the things that go on in there. And the reality is that most people don't use basically the most important strategy in content development that exists right now, which is content repurposing. And so let me bust a myth real quick for a lot of people out there. The thing is that everybody seems to think, and I don't care if you've been in marketing for many, many years or you're just brand new to it, most people seem to think that your customers or your audience are paying attention to every single thing that you do. And what you start to learn really quickly when you start promoting anything is that for the most part, it's actually really hard to get somebody's attention because they're busy. They're paying attention to other people.
Too crowded,
they're
the internet.
not on Facebook right now.
Yeah,
it's so noisy.
Yeah.
So the myth for most of us is that if we share something multiple times, or if we repurpose our content from our program to the beginning level, or if we share a tip that's in our program, everybody's going to remember that tip. Everyone's going to think it's done. I can never use it again. That's exactly what's happening through the process. And everybody goes, all right, well, once I've used it once, I've got to come up with something new. But the reality is, especially for those of you who have gone far enough to know what your core offer is, what you'll start to realize is the most important thing that you can do is repurpose your content. And so throughout this process is to look at your offers, to look at your core offer, especially the big thing that you want people to do, and say, how many pieces of content can I take from that core offer? So if I were to break it into pieces, and let's use a book as an example, because a book is the best example of how you can do this. But if you were to take your book and all the chapters of your book and break it up chapter by chapter by chapter, and you were to say, what do I talk about in this chapter? What do I talk about in the next chapter? What do I talk about in the next chapter? And deepen that content, or create a video about that content, or use audio about that content. Any of those things are ways that we can quickly and easily start to fill in the funnel. Because for the most part, most of us think, again, we've got to create that Facebook Live video from scratch. We've got to create that course from scratch. And most of us are not repurposing enough. In fact, you and I were together at JVX, and we watched Michelle, a social media expert there, talk about the fact that for any given one of her blogs or videos that she created, she can post that same video or that same content up to 30 times on different platforms. 30 times.
Yeah.
And it's because most people aren't going to see it. So the idea is, for all of you out there, you've got to be looking for not just what do you create as your core offer, but how do you break it into pieces and start to repurpose it.
Yeah, that really resonated with me. I really believe that a good message is worth repeating and more announcements. Just similar to this kind of a expert training, I posted, for example, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and not just one time, right? You need to do that one more time because people are not always there. In time, or always check their emails. You need to access them through different ways and more times. Yeah.
Right. And one of the things I was just seeing a comment in the chat. I look at the chat when we're not there, and Yoram was saying, which I really agree with, even when I hear it a second time, I'll be in a different place and it may mean something new. Repetition is the mother of retention. And the truth is, it's not repeat for most people. Most people are seeing it the first time. And so this is why I love video so much, especially what we're doing here, because the opportunity to repurpose video content, to be able to take it and pull the audio out, and then you got a video and an audio. And then if you get it transcribed, for those of you who don't use transcription services, there are many ways to do it, but I'll put one in the Facebook Live chat, rev.com. You can get these videos or these things transcribed for $1 a minute. So for $10, you can take your 10-minute video, and that can help create multiple blog posts or multiple pieces of written content that you can clean up a little bit and use for what you're doing. So, in your hour of recording or your hours of courses, if you break those down, video, audio, if you have downloads associated with it, how do you use the downloads to attract people to buy the course? And so the interesting part about it is most of us don't look at our courses that way, because it's in and of itself is the big solution to the problem, and it's where we want people to go. And in reality, some of the stuff that's hidden in your courses, or some of the stuff that you're using as tools or processes and things that you do, are really part of things you could pull out and use to attract people to those courses or use for marketing?
Yeah, actually, that's a good reminder.
I just posted that.
Yeah, that's a great reminder because remind me people's preference. Some people are more visual. Some people are more like vocal. Some people tend to like to reading like text messages. So like you just reminded, we can, for example, shoot the video or audio and turn that into scripts and share with people. So it's multiple medias to share with people and get to meet people's needs. That's a great point.
Right.
Yeah.
Great question in the chat that from Yoram again. Where do I start? I have weeks and weeks of recordings. What's the highest priority content? I appreciate that you asked, because in some ways that takes us right to the bonus that I'm giving today. But I want to cover a little bit about what we talk about in the bonus. And so one of the things that's critical to do for a lot of you is a whiteboarding process, or it really depends on the order which you're taking people through your experience. So the best way I like to think about funnels or marketing process is I like to imagine, just good old networking events or a good old event like what you're at. And from the time that I shake someone's hand and I introduce myself and I say, "Hi, I'm Ken, nice to meet you. What do you do?" Yeah. All the way through them doing my Launch with Momentum program, or all the way through them being in a mastermind with me, or all the way through that process, I've got to know what that ideal process is. What's it like if everything goes perfectly? And the most important question you can ask throughout that process is, then what? Or and then. You can say it either way. So you can say, I meet someone at a networking event. Then what? Okay, I take their business card. Then what? It goes into my, email marketing system. Then what? I send them an email to watch a specific thing. Okay, great. Then what? What happens from there? So for a lot of you, you don't have those offers and those pieces of what you're trying to do in order. And then not only that, you've got to be very clear on what the destination is. So for me, I like to start at the end of that process. I like to say, at the end of the day, what do I want? And so this would be the answer to Yoram's question out there. What do I want? I want people to take my core program. I want people to go through training. I want people to be my coaching client. And so I'm going to work backwards through that process saying, what are the various products, programs, offers that I have that are going to be part of that process? So if I want them to go to a mastermind with me, I'm probably going to work backwards into a live event. And then from that live event, there was probably some digital training. And then from that digital training, there was probably some introductory training or introductory offers that I had in there. So first and foremost, I have to know what my map is. I have to know what happens when people are going through various pieces of the process. I have to know that piece. Yeah. And then from there, so when you have lots of content or lots of materials, you want to pick the stuff that's the best fit to move people through that conversation, which means you got to be organized to some degree. And this is where I know a lot of creative entrepreneurs or people that, especially me, I'm a marketer and I love the creative process and I want to play around with new ideas all day. Yeah. But at the end of the day, if you don't have an idea of what that process is, it makes things a lot tougher for you to be able to go through and say, all right, what do I use? How do I repurpose this content? Because random is the enemy. If you're random about how you put these things together, if you're trying too many different things, we talked about this in the last session. If you're random or you're all over the place with your offers or what you're trying to do, you're never going to get a funnel of any kind put together. You're just going to get the results you get at the moment, and then you're going to move forward. So when you've got lots of content like you do, you've got to ask, what are the key pieces that will put people or attract people to your ideal experience? What are the things that you can use that are introductions to where you want them to go? And of course, not knowing specifically what your funnel is, it's tough to say specifically, but I want you to be thinking about, if you were to say people are going through to this end offer that you have, what do you have that can support them in getting through that journey? And some of it you might even be able to sell. Some of it you might be able to repurpose as offers. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Very interesting. Actually, I want to go deeper here because you remind me you need to always know where you want to go. Like you need to have the call to action, right? Call to action. And like the purpose. Every time you have a launch or campaign, you need to have a purpose where you want to guide people to go. What kind of action you want call them to take, right? That's very important. But now I'm wondering, it's very important you remind me not to be at random, even though you want to be very creative. I'm also a very creative person. So sometimes, I set up a funnel, very basic funnel, starting from Nick Magnans and then webinar, and then like call people to do the strategy session. And sometimes I just adjust a little bit some components of this funnel to not like, for example, you provide an offer and or invite people to do the conversation. So from your experience, to avoid to be at random, how can you, for example, you have already had a funnel, it's not working very successfully, right? You want to adjust it to like just twist some parts of this funnel to make it work better using the existing content. So where should I start?
Right. Well, so here's one tip I'm going to give most people. That question is a pretty sophisticated question. And I would say that most of you who are watching this, even if you're really experienced when it comes to marketing process and all that stuff, are probably not that far ahead. In fact, whenever I ask somebody, what are your stats? Number one, like, where does your traffic come from? Or how many people have opted into your list? Or how many people have bought that specific offer? Most entrepreneurs I meet or business owners have no idea when I say that. And so in this case, and I can tell you that anybody that reaches the highest level of the expert industry, and they're making 7-8 figures a year in this industry, they know every single one of those numbers.
Like Justin, right? Justin Livingston.
Right. They know how many people opted in. They know how many of those went through the first offer. They know how many went through the second offer. They know all of those things. So for them, that's why I had you guys, all of you out there who don't have some sort of map in your mind to say, what does that map look like? And then from there, this is where it gets tough, especially for us creative types, is then it really becomes more science than art. And this is the thing in digital marketing that drives people crazy. Because you go, well, I want to be creative. And if it's not working, we got to try something new. And the reality is, typically you don't have to try something new. Unless you have something that you can tell from the numbers, like you put out a freebie and literally nobody opts into it or nobody shows up. Then you know you might have to change something. But for the most part, big differences in marketing funnels or marketing processes are made with little bitty tweaks, changes. So what might change your opt-in rate may be a headline or some copy on the page and not changing the whole offer. Or it might be changing something in the way that you're trying to invite people to what you're doing. Or you might be going to the wrong place to meet customers. So the thing that's important about that question, and so when you say, where do you start making adjustments? First of all, you got to know your numbers. You got to say,
that's right.
How many people are coming? How many people are opting in? How many people are buying? How many people are getting through those pieces of the process? And then from that point, I can start answering the questions, because what most people don't like to hear, and I'm one of them, I admit, even though I've specialized in paid traffic. Looking at the numbers and making small adjustments, saying, let's test this little thing. Let's see what happens if I try this language. Let's see what happens if I change this picture on a page. And again, big differences come from small tweaks and changes. Now, if the only time I would be recommending making huge changes after what you're doing is when you see that it's just totally bombing. Like, literally nobody is buying, or literally nobody is buying. Now, one exception to that, if you are not generating traffic, if you're not getting people to come to the page and you're not getting leads or sales, that doesn't mean that you change your offers yet. That means you've got to get more people, so just be really cautious about that. And I know, again, that's a lot more of the science of this, especially for those of you who are in the process where you're saying, like, how am I going to build all this? How am I going to write all this content? How am I going to create all of this? So it's important to know both. It's important to know that where you're going to get all of this is from your offers. So once you've got an offer, once you know where you're going to teach, you're going to repurpose that content. And then once you've got something in place, you don't want to move from it too much until you have good reason to move. Until you see, look, this just isn't working at all, and I've made changes and it's still not working, or I've made tests and it's still not working. Like, that's the time that you really overhaul things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, great. Actually, we're actually going to a more interesting part. The title of this training actually should be changed, not just using your existing content. Actually, it's like make your existing funnels or whatever, it's like work better. do not
Right.
easily quit, right? Quite some entrepreneurs, for example, their initial launch is not working well, and they may think, oh, it's not working, my offer is not needed. They get desperate or disappointed, and then they turn to other niche or product. But actually, you know,
Right.
yeah, my personal experience, interesting, like you reminded me. Last time, for example, my lead magnet opt-in initially was 40 or 50, around that. And
Sure.
then I just changed a little bit of the front page and updated my new professional photos. And the opt-in changed to be over 70, 75.
Right.
So, you know, you see some little
Little
tricks.
changes.
Yeah, little changes. I love that kind of a process of like troubleshooting. It's a whole, like,
Right.
you already set up a funnel, some troubleshooting here and there to make some small twists to make it work better, right?
Right. And it's normally that because, again, keep in mind, and this is why I tell people when we're going through a content process or a mapping process, it really does start with what do you want? And a lot of people say, oh, I don't care about that. I don't want to do Y exercises. I don't want to know what type of thing I want to do. But the reality is the clearer you are about what you want to do, the clearer you are about where you're taking them. Like if you're going to do big online programs, if you're going to do live events, if you're going to do masterminds, you want to know that map in advance to say what makes you happy, what makes it work. Because then the stuff that's going to be way more work and way more in the weeds are these adjustment pieces. They're the things that once you've got something started and you're moving in a direction, you make subtle tweaks. And again, the people that really perform in this industry, they build lists, they make sales, they have events, they perform, they don't change that much. Like think about, again, you and I were just talking about JVX, the event we were at. That same event has been going on for years. They haven't changed that event. They have the same process. They launch it every year. They tweak some things about it, like they might change the video or how they launch it, but they know that's the event they want to do, and they don't change it. And so for all of you, there's got to be something in that process that doesn't change, that you know it's like, all right, they're always eventually going to come to an event with me, or they're always eventually going to go through this particular program, or this is the thing I want them to do. And the only way you can know that is first of all, know what you want and where you're, and then two is know where you're taking them. And again, that's where the bonus that we brought up today that you'll share on the Facebook Live page is just another session. It's another video training and a tool called Lucidchart. For those of you who hadn't heard of it, it's a free tool you can use to kind of start doing this thought process of what does my ideal experience look like? And for those of you who don't use technology, that's not your thing. Just use good old-fashioned paper. So say, all right, what does the map look like? And your first version should have lots of scribbles on it, lots of things that are like, oh, I thought it was this, but it's not that. And I'm going to pull this piece out. And again, with the goal of saying, what can get you to testing the fastest? And this is always true for anybody I work with. What gets you there fast? I don't want you to spend 6 months in development. I want you to get to testing because the hard work isn't in the development. It's in the testing. It's when you go, all right, I've launched it, and exactly what you said, it's not working. And I know we're going to talk more about that on tomorrow's session, but for those of you who are interested in that, again, that's your free bonus for today, is another session of me showing you the mapping process, giving you that tool that you can use to walk through that. And if you missed the bonus from day one, you'll get that as well, which is the 49 valuable lessons. So not only are you going to know where you want to take them, but you're going to know the things not to do in that process. And both of those are included with today's freebie.
Oh, love it. So I love it that you said that use another map. We also like what you emphasized earlier about the vision, right? You need to get a vision where you need people to go, their experience. What's a step-by-step you want to guide them to achieve or to access your service. And also you said the map. By the way, the map, I've not get a chance to review the details of the map. So is that map really have that diagram stuff in it?
You can start with that diagram. There are templates in there you can use for it. But for me, use that example. I like to use this example when I'm training people to say, imagine yourself sitting at breakfast in the morning and sit at the breakfast diner. And when I'm sitting there, imagine that someone's sitting at the table behind you and they're talking about your area of expertise. They're saying, man, I've got this funnel and it's not working. And man, I really wish I had more customers coming in. And you are like jumping out of your chair, ready to turn around and say, hey, I can help you. I can do that. I can do this. I want you to think about through that process of what it's like. If you were to turn around and say something, you're not going to turn around and go, hey, here's my $7,000 program, be in this. You're probably going to say, I've got this really cool training you can look at, or I've got my website, which you should see, or I've got a book, or whatever your thing is, chances are you're not going to start with, here's my $7,000 program. You know you're going to take them there, but you have to know what that process is from the first conversation, the first time you meet somebody, all the way through the end. And once you've got it locked in, until you have a reason to change it, which is data that tells you to change it, you want to stick with it. Get it out the door, start testing, and see what happens. Because again, I was reading an article the other day that one of the major learning sites, or one of the major e-learning sites where people can go to develop courses, say that only 6% of courses that are started on that platform ever actually make it through to release. So that means 94% of people who go in to develop some training or develop something, they start and they never finish. And so for all of you, that is, if there's no other lesson to learn, it's finish something. That puts you ahead of 94% of people who are out there never finishing, sticking with the idea and not moving it forward.
Yeah, I think whatever you create, the beginning, the beginning introduction of yourself, your expertise, your solution, it's starting with your education or marketing, right?
Right.
Like education, like what we are doing, education-based marketing. You need to get people to know you, to know your methods, to know what kind of expertise you can provide to them. So this you can use either like a Nick Magnet through like a live video like this, different channels, different medias to get people educated, to then build up that kind of a trust and a conversation. Right?
It's exactly right. It's exactly right. And again, for a lot of you, it's just getting that process in order, which is why I included the bonus we did today. And for some of you, you need the time, which is like what you and I just did, where you said, hey, exactly what you brought up 10 minutes ago. I launched my funnel. It wasn't working. I tweaked the images and the headlines, and all of a sudden it's working. A lot of you need support through that process. And that's exactly why we talked about this on the last call, and I'm going to talk about it again, that I'm doing this 6-month launch with Momentum program. Because a lot of you need an expert to go to and ask about technology, about your pages, about what you can try, about what you need to have installed so you can get the numbers,
all the analytics.
About what system.
Yeah.
And
I know I definitely need your help.
And so that's exactly what we're doing in the launch with Momentum program.
Yeah. I know where I am. For example, I set up some basic funnel. I definitely need your help to help me find where can I find all those data analytics and find where's the problem, troubleshooting, and get twist to make it really
and that's
work.
exactly what we're doing in the community right now. So for those of you who register as well, you'll notice there's actually a big conversation going on about that. Again, the technology where people get tripped up, I love to push people past that and say, we're just going to decide on that and move you forward. But for those of you who need that, again, Spring, you'll share that link too. For those of you who know you're ready, you know what your offer is, you've got a clear idea of what that diagram looks like. And if you don't, that's the first thing you're going to do and launch with Momentum. And so for those of you who want to know what that is, again, we have a huge deal for all of you. We're taking $1,000 off that 6-month program to get the support, to be able to ask the questions. And so again, I know we'll talk about that a lot more in tomorrow's session because it's the end of our series. But again, today, head over, get that bonus, get the whiteboard training, then go through Lucidchart and use it and start building out your process so that you're a step ahead. And those of you that are coming into the program, you'll get real familiar with that because that's part 1 of what you're going to do throughout your process.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you all for all this kind of teaching and the key points. And I'm wondering if we have some questions to answer. And I'm using my cell phone to double check. Yeah,
I was answering some from the Facebook Live during. Thanks for Yoram and everyone who's sticking around out there for the live session. And if you're not on the live session, that's fine too. Leave your question here. We can either cover it tomorrow, or I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been out there hanging around in the group. If someone has a question, just tag me in the post and I'll jump in and answer those questions. And again, for a lot of you, I know what you just need is questions answered, support, like kind of direct feedback on what you're doing. And that's exactly what we're here to do. So thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you so much, Ken. So you will, answer those questions, right? People who ever post under our live, like Yoram, I saw his questions there. Okay.
Live, or anybody posts in the Facebook group, I'll be happy to answer those questions.
Yoram just asked, where do you start? I probably have weeks of recordings. What is the highest priority content?
That was the question I had answered 10 minutes ago,
Oh,
where
sorry,
basically
yeah.
I was saying you got to figure out what. So the quick answer is the content that fits with your customer experience. So what's going to help people either get in the door? What can you package up as a product? Or, what are you going to use to get people to your ideal experience? Which for Yoram, I'm almost positive that is a workshop. He has a live event he wants to bring people to. So you want pieces from that event, the attractive pieces from that event, what people want from that event. So you're going through your content and you're prioritizing based on what you know. Out of that is where you start.
Yeah, I also want to remind it's not like make the process simple, like pin to a point, not overwhelm your audience and make out.
Right.
For example, you have weeks of recordings, you throw them all there and give them too much. Like for example, this time we have the series of training for three days, right? 3 times. I think that's up to 3 times is good for me to grasp. Yeah. Otherwise, it's too overwhelming. So just to build up like 1, 2, 3 steps, and then to get people's feedback and warm them up, get them onto a list, and then to further nurture them, provide more, conversations with them, learn their feedback.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me again. I'll be back tomorrow with our last session, sadly, but we'll have more to talk about, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm so happy today, the Zoom webinar finally worked for us. Thank you so much, Ken, finally. Okay, Thanks. Well, look forward to talking to you tomorrow.
Talk to you soon.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.